Okay. So the next presenter, Georgia Weidman, is the founder and CEO of Bob Security, a limited liability corporation, a security consultant and research firm. Georgia is a penetration tester, security research and trainer. She has presented her work at top conferences around the world, including Black Hat Briefing, ShmooCon, DerbyCon, and many others. Georgia has delivered high technology security training covering topics such as penetration testing, mobile hacking, exploiting development, conferences, schools, corporate clients, and online excellent reviews.
Who wrote this?
I don't know.
Sounds like a marketing person wrote this.
So who are you trying to market? Okay.
No, you're just that awesome.
Georgia's primary research area is mobile device security. Her groundbreaking work in mobile botnets and assessing the security posture of smartphones has been featured on news programs such as 16 by 9, The Bigger Picture on Global TV Canada, and Fox News Live. Additionally, Georgia has been quoted as subject matter expert in publications such as PC World, CNN Money, MIT Technology Review, ARS Technica. She is awarded a DARPA Cyber Fast Track grant to continue her work on mobile device security, culminating in the release of Smartphone Pen Testing Framework, which allows pen testers to assess the security of mobile devices in an environment. Georgia holds an MS in computer science with emphasis on security software and information security, as well as a lot of certifications.
Yeah.
Put your hands together. Welcome, Georgia.
All right, so I've wanted to ask this question all day as people are standing here right in front of their slides. Is my head like in the middle of my slide right now? No? You guys can see? Okay, I guess it's
projected from behind,
okay. Yeah.
so you can get up here in front of the entire screen and it will not.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I say a lot, so if you guys have these, I mean, you're welcome to throw things at me, but I have to warn you, I do hit back, and I apparently have a really good aim. So, without further ado, let's talk about mobile devices. So this talk is called Leveraging Mobile Devices on Pentests, and I'm Georgia, and that was a really long introduction. And I'm sorry you had to sit through that. I'm not nearly as cool as that. All right, so who has some sort of bring your own device policy at work? Who thinks that it's really secure and you're doing a really great job with that bring your own device policy? All right. What, your MDM solution isn't fixing everything? Lies. All right, so most of the time, honestly, when I have people who say, yes, we have mobile devices in the environment, what I end up seeing is something a lot like this picture. And maybe I should use black arrows on black slides. I don't know. But we have, our laptops and our desktops and our servers. And then we have some mobile devices. And they're all kind of just sitting in the same network. And that seems like a really great idea. And I don't think it sounds like a very good idea, particularly because, well, if I can have the device walk into your network and suddenly just start attacking everything else, I mean, we do a pretty good job of perimeter security, right? You're using those newfangled firewall things. Nobody can get in. But if I can just make it walk in, that could kind of undermine all of that. Because let's face it, who has a really good internal security posture at their work environment? Anybody? I do not. Absolutely not. Bulb Security LLC has ISO 8067 everywhere, just like everybody else. So, probably a better way to do this would have some sort of VLAN segregated by themselves. They can only talk to the mail server or whatever they need to talk to be in the enterprise, but they can't talk to these other guys, so we have some sort of segregation. Unfortunately, I very rarely see that. You should also probably put your printers on their own VLAN while we're talking about it. Because this could stop an attack like this. I could get to the other phones, but I couldn't just attack your workstation straight from the phone, which is one of the things we're going to demo today. I'm actually going to attack one of my VMs from a phone that has been compromised. But BYOD, if you really think about it, and I guess I undermine everything that I do here, it's like, BYOD is this big buzzword, probably that gets filtered out in the DerbyCon CFP, am I right? No, you just take out cloud and APT.
Cloud, APT, and anything involving
No talks on computers.
synergies on bad design. And,
Okay. Well, BYOD is one of those buzzwords that everybody likes, but the problem is BYOD isn't new. We just didn't bother to think about it until now. My first job out of college, I was a government contractor. The people I worked for, they gave me a laptop. I sat down my first day of work at the government agency and I plugged it into the network. Yay! So we ran some sort of like security scan thing against it, but I can assure you it didn't do a very good job because I had nothing but malware on my system and it didn't notice me. So, wireless access point, we do not allow rogue wireless access points here in our environment. So the CEO says, all right, walks down to the Best Buy and says, I would like to get on the wireless in my little secure network. What do I do? And they are sold a nice wireless access point. They plug it into the network, and wow, no security on it. Maybe WEP, if it's Verizon, kind of WEP. Kind of WEP. WEP 0.5. And then there's everybody's favorite, the game console. I mean, who has a game console in their break room at work? I mean, come on. And if you don't, you wish you did. Well, PlayStation in particular, you could just put Linux on it and then all the good stuff happens. Well, you used to could put Linux on it before, Sony became Sony and did away with all that. But anyhow, all of these devices here could potentially bring danger and destruction to your network. So, is the mobile device really any worse? Is this per se any worse to your environment than the PlayStation? Maybe, maybe not. It's another device that we don't know what it's doing, which is generally just awful. I don't know whose water this is, but I'm totally going to drink it. Yeah, it's mine now. The only extra problem with the mobile devices is the mobile modem itself. I kind of see this futuristic world in maybe 5 years or so where, fiber cable doesn't really exist anymore and we're all just using some sort of satellite out there to get our data. That's how we talk to the internet. I mean, that's how my phone talks to the internet. So maybe the whole world will talk to the internet that way. But for right now, we're really good at saying, I'm going to see everything that goes in and out of our networks. Well, I mean, the U.S. government apparently has been watching everything going in and out of our networks all this time. They're probably looking at the cell towers, too. I mean, you don't even have to exploit the cell tower if you can just show up and say, hey, I'm the NSA, let me just watch everything. So this becomes even more interesting, I guess. If the rogue cell tower is really the real cell tower, they're just watching you. But there's been lots of cool research on rogue cell towers doing malicious nasties, so everything that goes out to the cell tower may be going God knows where besides Prism. But we, as an environment, we want to say everything that goes in and out of our network we can watch. We make everybody sign and say nothing is safe, everything is going to be reviewed by the security team, we're going to packet capture everything, we're going to break your SSL sessions, we're going to proxy everything, and watch everything you do. And we can tell whether our data is going anywhere that we wouldn't like. However, if we can talk to this cell tower that we don't own, it's up to Verizon where our data is going. And that, perhaps, is not so good for our business security. So naturally, my question was, all right, so I've got some sort of device, and I want to know whether it's secure or not. Now, what do security people do when they want to know whether a device has vulnerabilities? They run a vulnerability scanner against it, right? Nessus will tell me whether my iPhone is secure and should be on the network. Well, it didn't say anything bad about it. So it's secure, right? It should be allowed on the network. This passed. Yeah? Well, a few things about my iPhone. Well, one, it's running iOS 4.3.3 because I use it in a class where we do that jailbreak where you just go out to the website and magic happens. So really old version of software, definitely pwnable. In fact, just pwnable by going to a website. Yeah, probably should have picked that up. It also has SSH installed, which I thought was really strange that it doesn't even come up. It says there's some ports open, but it doesn't pick up the fact that it's, SSH with a default password. I just left it as Alpine. So you can log in this root on this iPhone. Anybody on the same network can. Didn't pick that up. It doesn't have a good sandbox or any other MDM restrictions, as though that would really help anybody anyways. But, I feel like the vulnerability scanner kind of failed. But the iPhone was allowed on the network. It's secure. Yay. Not. I know, I'm not funny. You don't have to laugh. That gets them every time. All right, so your phones are accessing some data, be it just email. But if you think about it, just think about just the email bit. You're probably emailing reports, right? Got nice PDFs of all my client reports sitting in my email. They're sitting on my phone. Maybe I can read them. I'm sure all my clients would really love to hear that, anybody who happens to pwn my phone today can see all their vulnerabilities. They would just love that. So maybe we're just talking to the email. Maybe we're VPNing in. I've actually seen stuff where people basically replace the RSA token with the phone, and they get their two-factor authentication from the phone. So it's like if they can generate it, then if I'm another app on the phone, I can also generate it. So, maybe it's better than the RSA token, but is that really saying much? And then that brings in our other little problem of the potentially malicious cell tower. So any data that is coming in or out of that device from your network may be going out via the cell tower, and it may be going somewhere nasty. Like, for instance, to me. We could sit up here. No, my phones keep dropping to edge. So all your phones will drop to edge, so you don't even have to be particularly good at crypto to set up a rogue cell tower. You just set it up on edge, buy a $20 thing from China that will jam all the cell phones in the area down to edge, and everybody will attach to you because edge doesn't do any authentication. So kind of scary, I think. But no one's ever going to fix this, so we just have to deal with it. So let's talk a little bit about the threats against these devices. So I can be really doom and gloom about this and say, oh, your mobile devices are so terribly insecure and you should definitely be pen testing them. But if I don't have anything to back it up with, that's no good. What time did I start? I always run out of time. What time did I start?
You got plenty of time.
I know now, but I won't later. Okay. All right, so everybody's favorite, apps. Who loves apps? Hands up, come on. You admit it.
The question is, who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't love apps? Couple people. Okay, here's the thing. So, app security is never going to happen, and this is why. I get a new phone. I want to talk on Twitter on my phone because I am obsessed with Twitter. My options are use the web interface browsery thing on the phone, which is terrible, or I download either the official Twitter app or some other TweetDeck or some other application. And one way or another, I'm going to have to accept the permissions that app has. If I'm on Android, if I'm on iPhone, I just have to trust Apple that they're making sure that Twitter is doing a good job. Yeah. So app security is never going to happen because I am always going to click yes. And if I'm always going to click yes, your mom is always going to click yes. I mean, let's face it. Would anybody here, if they really, really wanted the app, would they not click on it because of some permission thing? Anybody? All right, you guys, you're with me on this. The app functionality is like, if I want Jay-Z's new record for free, I'm going to download it and let it steal all my shit. That's just all there is to it. I loved that. It was all over the news, right? Like in the New York Times, and it was like Jay-Z's new app, and it was talking about app permissions. So it was really great for me because normal people who don't care about app permissions might actually be reading about it now. So it made me really excited, but it's still got all the downloads it could possibly get for free in an hour. So obviously it didn't stop anyone. They just bitched about it. So they still probably got pwned. But hopefully Samsung didn't really pwn them. So your employees are bringing in mobile devices, be them iPhones, Androids, Windows Mobile, or BlackBerry, and they probably have applications. Can we say, well, if you want to put your device on the corporate network, you can't have any applications except these ones that we say you can have? How is that going to go over? A little bit like this, I think. That's what they're going to do to the security team. So, we just have to assume probably there are malicious apps somewhere in our environment. we should probably do something about at least minimizing the damage they can do. This is what we do as pen testers, right? We're like, okay, there's going to be risk. Let's see what we can do to minimize it. And always my favorite, software bugs. I have a long and complicated history with software bugs myself, having written some buggy software in the past. Anybody here ever written any software that was completely free of bugs? Liars!
Hello, Wolf.
Buggy software.
Find a bug in my Hello Wolf program.
You found the bug.
No, find a bug in my Hello Wolf program.
Okay, fair enough. Adrian says he has written a Hello World program that does not have any bugs. However, add in some more functionality to the point where it's useful, and you will probably have bugs. Yeah, question?
No, I was going to say, he compiled it against something.
Okay.
Right.
My interpreter may have been bad, so.
Yeah.
Alright, so software bugs happen. We should not be surprised that they're happening on mobile devices. Every time there's an iPhone jailbreak, it's like, oh my god, Apple sucks. Why can't they secure their software? And yet, who can? I certainly can't. SPF is full of bugs. Your browsers have bugs, but our traditional browsers have bugs too, so when WebKit gets pwned on a mobile device, that's not really any different than Java getting pwned on your traditional platforms. Your apps, of course, have bugs. You don't have to go to secure coding school in order to write apps for the Android, iPhone, or anybody else. You just have to pay money. That's all. You don't have to be a secure coder, and even if you are an excellent secure Java coder, have you ever heard of an intent or a broadcast receiver or any of these other newfangled Android things that you suddenly have to secure? Well, it certainly sounds like the people who developed for Samsung didn't. And of course, the kernels themselves have bugs. I always think this is really interesting, particularly with the Android, because it's often the exact same bugs as the Linux kernel. Just no one notices they're there for a while. Like, the initd, or it was initd on Android, but the udev bug a couple of years ago on Linux got patched up in Linux, many months later. Somebody thinks, well, they don't have udev on Android, so surely it's not there on the Android too, but the functionality was encapsulated in the Android. You still have to load kernel drivers, and just like regular Linux, Android wasn't really checking to make sure the person saying, hey, load this for me, was actually from the kernel. My application could say, hey, load this for me, run stuff as root, yay! And it was just sitting in Android all this time. So, these things happen. Developers are, after all, only human. So, chances are, your software on this device is going to be old and out of date. Well, this one really is, because it's a really old version of iOS. This phone is kind of, most of the time, pretty up to date. Your Androids, it gets really strange with the updates, because your carriers don't necessarily update you to the latest version. So bug fixes come out and we never get them. My mom has this regional carrier in Mississippi, and it's like Cellular South or something, and her Android is literally like on Android 2.2, and that's it. It won't update her, and her phone isn't that old, so it's really kind of tragic, but it's really up to your carrier and your device manufacturer working together to port everything that Google does to even if you can get patched. So again, we're back in this, oh, you can't bring your devices because they're old and unpatched, but the users can't patch them, so what are we gonna do? Kill the security team. And bring our own devices. Ow.
Did that hurt?
No.
They would rather use real bullets.
Yeah, they would rather use real bullets to attack the security team. Because let's face it, everybody hates the security team because we tell them that they can't do the things they want. And, I don't want anybody telling me I can't download Jay-Z's app. Yeah. Social engineering. So, here's the thing. I used to think social engineering was what people who couldn't come up with real research to talked about at conferences. I thought it was just this thing, And that social engineering didn't really work. I mean, who would click on a link in an email? Come on. But then I started doing social engineering engagements. People I was working for, I have my own company. If people say, will you do this work? I do it. They're like, will you do a fish for us? And it's like, sure. I'm not that great with HTML. I just clone their website and maybe break a few pictures and put a form that doesn't even make the password bullets and make it look really ridiculous, and then, write a little email that says, hi, we've set up a new web portal, love IT staff, but it comes from Gmail, and then it goes to my EC2 instance, and it's like, this is not a good fish. I have seen much better ones. Problem is, I kept getting results with it. So, yes, social engineering does work. I was wrong. I apologize to everyone I ever made fun of for their dumb social engineering talks. Social engineering is really cool, and I'm not funny. But let's say that wasn't true. Let's say nobody ever clicked in any links in any emails. I personally have never done a phishing test where no one clicked on it. I've had some where not very many people clicked on it, but there's always a few, and really you only need one. So let's say that never happened. What if it was a text message? Would they click on it then? Okay, I will admit to this. It was early. I might have been hungover. I wake up, I'm laying on the phone like this, and it's like, you have won $500 from Best Buy. Please log into the Best Buy site. And you click on a little link, and it's a bit.ly, and you put in your credentials, and I'm like, crap, I just got phished, didn't I? See, I think the future of spam is going to be either through near-field communication or through SMS, because I've never really understood how people make money from sending people emails that are just going to spam filters anyways, but unless you specifically block the number, the SMS is going to show up. You're going to get the text message. So I think whoever in the shadows is doing this is going to be all over it way more than they are now, and somebody's going to have to do something about this because your phone is just going to ring constantly. It's like the telemarketers, right? All the time, I get these messages, and they're for whoever had my number before me, and he's obviously in a lot of trouble with the law, but yeah. And it's annoying, but these things happen, and I think that's the future. So, are your users going to click on links in text messages? Yes. If I did it again, well, I don't know. It shouldn't necessarily make me the judge of smart users in the world, because, yeah, I tend to make some good mistakes. But what about downloading applications? I'm out of bullets. So I once got a text message from one of my carriers. I have multiple carriers, that's the beauty of being a smartphone tester, is that you get phones from everybody. So one of my carriers sent me this text message, and it came from number 1234 or something, which particularly on the iPhone, it's very easy to spoof that, and you can actually do it in SPF. But it said, since you're a premium handset subscriber, you can get this new cool security app for free. Click on this link. And, I clicked on it, because that's what I do. I clicked on the link. It didn't take me to the Google Play Store. Well, it was the Android store at the time. This was a while ago. It took me to a third-party store. It said, had the carrier's banner up at the top, I could download this app. And I'm like, this may be real, it may not be real, but the last thing we need to be doing is teaching our users that this is okay. So, I downloaded the security app. You want to download my security app? It's real secure. Yeah. So, I've always wondered about this jailbreaking thing, because all the jailbreakers I know have hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, and I'm so jealous, and I don't understand why all my hard work gets me nothing, and they get all of this fame and acclaim just for breaking the iPhone. And then I started, sitting outside the local supermarket and asking people their thoughts on jailbreaking, pretending to be one of those Girl Scout cookie salespeople. Here's my poll about life, but it's really about jailbreaking. And most people just looked at me like I was insane, but, occasionally, I would get some good answers, this, 90-year-old woman being like, yeah, I love jailbreaking. And I'm like, well, why? Well, it lets me download the apps I want. It's like, really? It's that prevalent? Seriously, way too many people jailbreak. I talked to the jailbreakers, and they're like, yeah, we spend $5,000 a day on servers when we put out a new jailbreak. That's how much it's being downloaded. Millions and millions of downloads. But what are you really doing when you jailbreak the device? You're saying, hey, random person on the internet who I don't know, please take complete control of my device, do nasty to it, and then as long as I end up with the Cydia app at the end of it, I'm good. Whatever else you did, whatever. So, I Google how to jailbreak iOS 6 for iPhone 5, and what comes up first, what comes up second, who says it's going to be good. If you can be a malicious program and be good per se, I guess you could say that Metasploit is good, whereas a jailbreak that joins your phone to a botnet would be considered bad, but you're just dealing with nasty altogether, right? You're specifically asking someone to exploit you. And yet people do this constantly. And your users probably do it. All the MDM solutions love to say, big bold letters, we can detect jailbreaking. No one will ever root devices around here. Well, ever heard of something called signature-based antivirus? Does it do a very good job of stopping you from getting pwned? Yes? No? Anybody think signature-based antivirus is a 100% cure for pwning? No. Well, that's basically what your MDM solutions are trying to do. We're going to see malicious code running. No one's ever heard of polymorphic code before, apparently, in the MDM solution world. So I don't know how any MDM solution could ever say they can detect jailbreaking. They can detect Cydia, or they can detect bin.su. But, one of my talks once, somebody puts up his hand and is like, yeah, I just changed bin.su to bin.su1, and it didn't see it anymore. And this is secure, ladies and gentlemen. So, are your employees jailbreaking, or rooting, as the case may be? Probably. Can we really detect it? Probably not. And even if they're not jailbreaking or rooting, what if any application I download, there's really nothing to stop me from taking an application, putting a jailbreak or a root in it, the malicious code, and running it. Oops. So it all falls down. So these are all the scary ways I can get onto your device. Question is, what can I do once I'm there? So chances are I could, if I tried hard enough, get on somebody's device in your network. And then it's going to go to work on Monday, join the corporate network, and suddenly I can see your internal network. So, what horrors do I bring with me? Well, your mobile devices are really just, basically Linux systems. Well, it depends, but Android's Linux and iOS is basically just OS X, and Windows Mobile is, I'm not really sure what that's trying to be. I guess it wants to be Windows, but it's not really.
Windows CE.
Yeah, pretty much. So I can basically do a command shell kind of thing, just get it to throw me a command shell traditional way. But also, you could just stay in the app itself and just start calling stuff from apps, because apps want to do cool stuff. That's how we sell apps. So yeah, apps can see the underlying system. How nice. So you can actually just stay in the app itself and start doing nasty stuff straight from there. So, naturally the question, my clients have a tendency to Google me and say, well, Georgia, you do mobile stuff. What can you tell us about the mobile devices in our environment? When you did our pen test and we only gave you, 5 IP addresses to test, and you could only do it during these hours, and you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that, and you couldn't socially engineer us. You were testing our mobile devices, right? No. Well, what can you tell us about our mobile devices? Well, not much, really. What about your competitors? If I hired someone else, could they pen test our mobile devices and tell us whether they're secure? And it's like, no, not really. I don't think so. So what do we do about this? So I created something called the Smartphone Pen Test Framework with the help of the DARPA Cyber Fast Track. Basically, they paid me to get fired from my job. Yes, I got fired for the second time. I don't do very well at work, apparently. Yes, I got my DARPA grant, and my company said goodbye, and I said, so long. And they said, you'll never be as cool as H.D. Moore. And I said, I will try. And then the funny thing was, I ran into my old boss at Black Hat last year at, the Circle Bar, and I didn't even recognize him. And he was like, hi, Georgia. And I'm like, yeah, have we met? And I wasn't being an asshole. I just couldn't remember. So it's like, yeah. What? I should drink less. Yes, I should definitely drink less. Can you like see the sweat pouring off me on the camera? I get so nervous. No. I get very nervous when I speak, so I'm a bit sweaty up here. Anyway, so what we can do with SPF, we can test for remote vulnerabilities. We have to hope there's not too many remote vulnerabilities on these phones. Occasionally there is remote vulnerability. You also see stuff that calls itself remote, but it's really a client side, like the USSD attack where it would automatically dial a number when you went to a web page or you opened it with near field communication. That's a client side. You have to do something. But, you know, the iPhone still, this iPhone in particular has a nice remote vulnerability, i.e. the default root password. But hopefully not many of your people are doing that. There's also, you know, your client sides. I put up a malicious browser. I can also do stuff with near field communication, you know, Android Beam. Like Charlie Miller says he can do it, like go up behind somebody if they have it in their pocket like this. But I'm not completely convinced because you have to be really, really close. But you never know. Social engineering and also local vulnerabilities. So once you get on the device, there's really nothing to stop you from saying, okay, what version is this? You know, they all have a version string that says, I'm iOS so-and-so. It's like, oh, what are all the vulnerabilities in that? And just start pulling them down from a web server, dumping them straight into memory and running them. Yay, root. But my other question, you know, I've talked about SPF for a while and I've showed a lot of that stuff, and I apparently think it's a lot cooler than most people do, since I didn't get into Kali Linux. Violence! But once I get on the device, what else can I see? I mean, yes, we can try and escalate our privileges to root on the device, and then I can see all of your emails. I can see anything you have cached in any application anywhere. And we all know mobile applications always use a really good, secure system of storing passwords. Actually, no, they don't. Just in case. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the last time I gave a talk, some people gave me some feedback that said that I was loud and sarcastic, so I apologize for my loudness and my sarcasm halfway in advance. Because yes, I am indeed loud and sarcastic. But,
Sardonic.
what?
The word is sardonic.
Sardonic, alright, so I'm loud and sardonic. Now I sound smart. What else can I see? So we can get everything that's on the device. That's just a given. I've pwned your phone. Everything that's on there is now suspect. Everything coming in and out of it is now suspect. It probably belongs to me. But can I take that a step further and do something like this? Well, yes, actually I can. And I can make it even worse than that. So I'm really big on solving problems that don't really exist. For instance, you know, most people can probably call out to the internet, right? You have to be able to use Facebook from your workstation, or else, again, you know, shoot the researcher. I'm out of bullets. But I did once have a client on a Pentest where they had this really super ultra platinum proxy where the only thing that could get out to the internet was the Internet Explorer process itself, and you had to be authenticated as a domain user. They also had local admin passwords that were 5 characters long and all lowercase. So, I mean, eventually I got in anyways, but, you know, they were trying on the security. I had to give them props for that proxy. So, maybe the exploited system would not be able to call out to the internet, so I would not be able to call back to my listener, and that would make me unhappy. So, again, in the 1% at most case that this would ever matter, I fixed that problem too. So, what you can actually do is after you exploit one of these systems, instead of having them, you know, call out to some listener on the internet, you can have them actually call back to the device. So it's in the local network. And the device sends the shell out to the cell tower via SMS. So it's a nice SMS shell going on that completely bypasses any proxy filtering, anything you could possibly have going on. I'm not going to demo that today. Mainly because my phone's, you can only demo that on real devices and you wouldn't be able to see it, but my phones keep dropping to edge in here. I don't have very good service, so the last thing I want to have is a demo failure. But I am going to show you something today that has never been shown before. I just finished it like 2 days ago. So let's do some demos for basically the rest of the time. So I'm going to show you doing some nasty stuff with SPF, and we're actually going to pwn a box and then at least have it call back to its listener. And before we do that, I want to say thank you to DARPA Cyber Fast Track, even though it doesn't exist anymore. But DARPA Cyber Fast Track paid for the original SPF, and if it wasn't for them, I'd probably still be slaving away as a junior pin tester that nobody thought was very cool. And I wouldn't be able to do this, that's for sure, because I never had any boss that said, yeah, you should spend all your time going to conferences and talking to people. That sounds like a great idea, Georgia. So, love to DARPA, now I'm the CEO, now I answer to no one, and yeah, alright. So, let's demo some stuff. Alright, so I just have SPF on Kali Linux, which I had to download from my GitHub because it, right in the heart! Well, at least I've got some more ammo now.
Alright, I'll quit.
Alright, so originally SPF was written in Perl. A lot of people did not like that, so I listened and I paid someone to rewrite it in Python for me. So now the Perl version is still in there, but it's not being updated anymore, so now I just write in Python. I would just rather be spending my time writing new functionality rather than rewriting the functionality I already did. So I hired somebody from Russia to do it for me. Yeah, I read through the code afterwards. You can get people for like 5 cents an hour over there. Sheesh. Alright, so framework.py, so it is all in Python now. So Python users unite. But seriously, it was so much easier to match things in regex in Perl. I'm just gonna give you that. Yeah. Alright, so here it is. Here's SPF. There used to be a GUI. There's not a GUI anymore because I don't write secure web apps, nor do I want to. I just like to break into them. So I just took the web app portion out. Let me make it a little bit bigger so we can all see it. Alright, so one of the cool things I think about SPF is it allows you to run mobile-based attacks, but you don't have to call out to some weird thing on the internet where you pay them 10 cents a message to send your text messages. Why not just use the device you already have? So you can either plug in a little USB with a SIM card in it, and it'll hook up to that through the serial port, or you can actually hook up to the phone you have. You just install this smartphone Pentests framework app, and then they'll just talk to each other. So attached to a mobile modem. Number 2, give it some nonsense for the database. Key 1 is a terrible key. You should really use better crypto than I do. Where are we? Ohio. And attach. We're going real fast today. Alright, so now until I tell it otherwise, I can not only run attacks from the phone itself, but in SPF proper, I can run attacks and that phone will just send messages and things or do near field communication if it's enabled to do so, which obviously the emulator is not, but it will do attacks from that device until I tell it not to. So this will be owned by the pen tester, and our other phones over here are the ones we'd like to attack. So, since we want to show attacking another system, let's go ahead and build an agent. So I have it such that the last thing I'm going to show today, because that's what I just built, and so if it screws up, it's going to be over. We're just going to say yay. But we can actually backdoor any APK, so all you need is the APK file. You don't need the source code anymore, but we're going to start with the source code. It used to be you had to have the source code of the app, and it would backdoor it. Now it'll actually backdoor the APK, so you can just grab any APK you want, and it'll put the agent inside of it, and it'll look normal. But let's go ahead and generate the agent app. Number 2.
And what's an APK?
Oh, yeah, APK. I'm not really sure what it stands for, but it's the Android packages. So your apps on Android are .apk files. So let's just do, so by default it has the Google Maps demo in there that Google has, and then the blank front end, but you can import any template you want. So any source code that you have, you can put it in here. Let's just do the Maps demo. And SPF only responds to the modem you tell it to, so if somebody knows you've been infected with SPF, they at the very least have to spoof their number in order to get it to respond to them. And also, again, it has terrible crypto, and it's only going to respond to the value key1. SPF communicates either via SMS, near-field communication, or HTTP, all of which are basically in clear text, so really what's the point when anybody can sniff it anyways? I could do SSL if I wanted to, I guess. How about Android Agent 6? Remember the number 6, I'm just going to forget. So it's going to just use the Android SDK to build that for us, so it's going to backdoor it. All right, so now let's send it to somebody. So if you look at a bunch of my previous talks, you can see lots of different attacks, but let's just do the easiest attack ever. Just tell them, hey, download this. So I'm just gonna have them directly download the agent. So I'm gonna choose number 1. This is an Android agent. Let's put it at Ohio 1, file name app.apk. Deliver it via SMS or near field communication. Again, we can't do NFC on the emulator, so let's just do an SMS. And who do we want to send it to? Send it to another emulator. And we can put custom text in there. By default, it just says this is a cool app. Let's just do that. And then what this is doing, SPF is communicating with this guy who has the mobile modem and thus the ability to send text messages. And it's going to send a text message to 5556, which is who I told. And sure enough, this is a cool app. Please download it from this place. Which it's just pulling the IP from the config file. We could make that a domain name if we wanted to. You can change those. And naturally, our user's just going to download it because, you know, that carrier taught them to do that. Downloading from a local network is hard. App number 69, one after my own heart. And how it is right now, you basically have an all or nothing scenario for the agents. Like the next thing I'm gonna do, probably right after Black Hat, is make it such that you can just choose, I want this functionality in my agents. So this is all just permission based, so you pretty much say, I want everything or I want nothing. But if we wanna be more stealthy, we could just say, only have the network permission, and then just start sending out malicious stuff over the network. And then you wouldn't see this screen. But let's face it, when has this ever stopped anybody? Again, I fix problems that don't exist.
I want Jay-Z's new album.
Yeah.
I'm not admitting I got it.
And then the user opens the application. And it looks just like the regular Maps view. All we basically did is backdoor it. So it's running the SPF stuff in the background. It's got a broadcast receiver listening for SMSs. And it also calls out periodically over HTTP. So the only thing that takes time is actually attaching to it, because that's the person we're pin testing's phone, so we don't necessarily know when they're going to open it. So we just tell it where it checks in, and we have to wait for a minute. So while I'm waiting for a minute, let's go ahead and take questions now if you have any. Does anybody have any questions? I guess I haven't shown everything yet, but question.
What version of Android do you infect?
It can infect, in this case, it can infect anything 1.6 and later. So everything up to the newest version. If it's running exploits or you're doing something like a client side, it's going to be specific to what's vulnerable. But in terms of an app, this will do anything 1.6 or later.
And how did you sign the code, or how did that work?
Oh, it's just signed with a debug key. Some of you may have heard of that Android master key, though if this bug is really the Android master key bug, it's completely misnamed. You can basically have two versions of classes.dext in your APK, and it'll sign against the first one and install the second one. So that's what I'm putting in right now. So it'll basically sign it with the original signature of the app. So, and that's Google's fault, not mine. So it checks in, and we can start doing nasty stuff with the agent. So we can now, via SMS or HTTP, communicate with this guy. Since I want to start attacking stuff, I particularly want to attack this guy here, which I use for my classes, and he's very slow today.
What did he ever do to you?
What?
You're attacking him. What did he ever do to you?
He was built specifically for the purpose of being destroyed. This is... So yeah, if you want to get into like cloning debates and stuff, this virtual machine was made solely for the purpose of making my life better by getting pwned. And if any of you are familiar, have taken any exploit development, you probably ran into War FTP 1.6.5. Why I use this as a demo is because we need to be able to write the exploit in C, compile it to run on ARM, so the Android device can actually run it. I don't like to write exploits in C, so this was a really easy Stack Overflow, so it was something I could do fairly quickly. So, first thing I want to do, let's just download a file to the device. The only permission we need to download the file is the network permission, so we can call out to the server and get it. Every application has the ability to save stuff to the file system, and actually to run it. So, only with the permissions it's started by the application itself, but if it's, say, privilege escalation, alakazam. So let's download a file. So it wants to know the file to download. Well, what do I usually do when I get in an internal network? I typically want to see what's listening, so I was like, well, how do I port scan on an Android? And sure enough, they actually have Nmap already ported to Android, so I'll just drop that. Let's see, what's it called? Yeah. Alright, so I just want to tell it the file I want to download, so root, desktop, Nmap, -561, I should really rename this. Bin Nmap. Where do I want to put it? Just write some things. Have it do it over HTTP, because SMS on emulators is not always so nice, and we certainly don't want a demo failure. Oddly enough, in order to make Nmap run, we actually need to give it a config file as well. I'm also going to tell it to download the config file, which is in share, Nmap services, root, desktop, Nmap, 5.61, test 4, share. You're not going to shoot me for that?
If Adrian wasn't in the way, you'd have been shot like 10 more times.
Have it download those two files, and again, it just stores them to the file system. And then I tell it I want to execute a command, so I'm just going to tell it I want it to run Nmap. Execute a command. I'm just going to sit down here. Nmap 192.168.20.150 is just the IP of that Windows box, so I'm just going to default Nmap that one box, and I want it to output. Of course, I'm not going to be able to remember what the full file path is. com.example.android.google.apis, I think. Files, Nmap output. Which is cheating. I realize I should fix this. And then it asks, was the file downloaded? Because it can run any binary that's on the system. And if it was downloaded, it knows it's in the files directory. Actually, for fear of screwing up, because I do that so often, I'm going to cheat and make sure that's the actual directory I want. CD Android SDK, CD platform tools, ADB switch emulator 5556 shell root cd data com.example.android.google.apis files ls. Sure enough, that's the right one. I remembered how to demo. Yay! Alright, so let's do HTTP again, and now it's actually going to run Nmap on the mobile device, so that's sitting in your internal network, so we can now basically just use it as a pivot. So if we watch this guy, we can see in a second, it's going to start writing these Nmap output files. I say this, and then it doesn't want to. There we go. So it just outputs to Nmap, greppable Nmap and XML. That's all Nmappy stuff. So naturally, I'm going to want to see what this thing came up with, so I want to upload a file. So anything that the application has access to, we can just read and send up to us. And naturally, since the application wrote those files, it can of course read them. So let's have it pull up this file. So I want data.com.example. See, this is bad, and I should really make it automatically tell what its class path is. Example.android.google.api is files inmap output.inmap, and then it's going to upload that file to me. And while it's doing that, I'll just go ahead and tell you that there's something nasty sitting in there. What?
I was making sure everything's recording.
Okay, so I just have this file that's nano war ftp meterpreter.c, and this is really bad C code that basically exploits that war ftp vulnerability. And my only problem is I need it to run on the mobile device itself. If I run it from here, I can't see the internal network. Well, of course I can right now because I'm all in VMs, but you know what I mean, right? So I need to be able to run it on the Android. The Android can run compiled C. I just need to be able to compile it. Luckily, we can do that in SPF. But let's see if our file came up yet. Oops. So it did pull up the file. It's called text.txt. So if I go to root, smartphone, Pentests framework, framework console, nano, text.txt. Sure enough, there's the InMap results of the internal network. We did it all without ever actually being anywhere near the device. We just can call it either via SMS or HTTP and make it do stuff for us. So, with a bit more in mapping and whatnot, we could find out, the banner grab and see that this is war FTP, and we can exploit it. So I wrote some code for it, or if there's just C code already available for a specific exploit, we could just, use that. But now I need to compile it, so I was running into a bit of trouble. How do I write an ARM compiler? Well, I put one in SPF, so there's just one in there. Compile C code for ARM Android, so you can run any C code on an Android. File to compile, root desktop, war FTP meterpreter .c. Just call it war FTP met. And it threw a bunch of warnings because I write bad C code. What else is new? So naturally, I'm going to want to download it. Download file, root desktop, war FTP met, war FTP met, and it'll pull that down the same way it did InMap. And of course, I need some sort of listener to catch it. And again, you probably saw it. You can actually set up a listener. So number 10, you can set up a listener on the actual device. So have it call back to that and then send it back to you either via HTTP or SMS again. So we can bypass filterings and things. And then use number 11, connect to the listener, and we can actually communicate with the Windows box through the phone back to SPF. But you have to have real devices to show that. So you can watch it in a video on my website. But we're just going to call back to just regular MSF console. So we're just going to use Metasploit here to catch it so we can just see this happen. If MSF console wants to, start. Why is MSF console so slow on Kali?
It's slow no matter what.
I guess that's true. Failed to connect to database. It doesn't matter. Just open. I don't care.
You didn't read the instructions.
I know. You're supposed to start the service first.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It should still open.
User error.
You missed.
Oh, sorry.
Is it just not going to open without the database?
No, it will.
There we go. All right. So I just want to catch a handler here, or catch a shell with a handler. So this is all if you don't know this stuff and it looks interesting, I teach online classes about it. Just pimping my own stuff up here. I should have just set this up before I got on stage. get lhost 192.168.20.11 exploit. Alright, so now I've got something to catch the shell when it comes in. Now I just need to actually run that exploit. So again, we can execute command. And the command I want is war ftp met. So that's what I called it. Just how I wrote the code is you need to tell it the IP address to attack, and the port FTP is 21. So, and yes, this was downloaded. Delivered over HTTP. So that's going to make the phone run the exploit, which was compiled for ARM, so it will run on Android. And if we have something vulnerable on the other end, which we do, we should see a shell momentarily. You will not fail on me today. There it is, yay! Sending stage. Give me the prompt. We shall not fail. There we go. Alright, so what did we just accomplish? We somehow got on the device. We used the device to start doing information gathering on the internal network, and then once we found the right information, we actually ran an exploit from the mobile device. So it's sitting there on the local network. Again, internal networks have a tendency to have, unpatched things and default passwords and, other things that we would never make internet facing ever, right? All right, so we could also, again, we could have it call back to the phone itself, and that's, I think, moderately more interesting when it goes over SMS. But as Martin asked earlier, is it slow? Well, yeah, SMS is not particularly fast. So your shell does have a little bit of a delay on the SMS, but I think this is pretty interesting. What do you guys think? Cool? All right, I want to show you one more thing, and then I'll get off the stage, I swear. Okay, just because I just wrote this and I think it's cool. I'm going to backdoor an application, app to backdoor. So again, it's just the maps demo thing. It's called maps demo over.apk. So it takes the APK, and this is really probably the worst thought out thing ever, because I reverse the original app and then take the Android agent code, basically backdoor the Android agent with the original app. So the first thing that actually starts is the Android agent. And then it starts the original app, and then I compile them together. So I put them together, compile them, but the only problem is the Android agent maps its resources like statically. So in the decompiled code, it's just stuck there. So every time it tries to check like a global value, it fails. So I decompile it again, grab the new values and the old values, and then just find and replace all of them, recompile it again, sign it with a key, and off it goes. So yes, this was probably incredibly badly thought out, but it works. So we just need to tell it its parameters, so where it calls back to. It pulls the IP address from the config file. You give it a phone number. So it's going to build the APK for us. I think this is exciting because you don't have to have source code anymore. You could just, and then when we combine it with the keys or the master key problem, we can actually make it look like the real thing. So then I can just, send it to one of these guys. Android file name app.apk SMS. Send it to the other guy. Come to this guy.
What you said, it's at 8, not 6.
Yeah, this is 8.
Oh.
Yeah, I have 3 of them open. I know I'm running over. I'm almost done, I swear. I just wanted you guys to see the newest, coolest, latest, greatest thing ever. I can backdoor any application. I'm telling you, it does work. Did you just shoot something at me?
No way, I'd never seen anything you.
Innocent bystanders.
All right, well, that's all I have. So if there's any more questions, unless we're in a real hurry, I can take them.
So why won't Martin let you have it in Kali Linux?
Yeah, that was always my question. I was in Backtrack 5R3, but then I got dropped out of Cali. So, I don't know.
We're gonna revisit that.
But it is all up on GitHub, so you just have to, go to my website or just go to Georgia W on GitHub and you can just clone it down. It's all open source, everything for the Python, the Perl. It has installer scripts for Ubuntu, Kali, and Backtrack. Everything for the agents, and it's all open source. So, and I love for people to contribute. So, if you like Python, because I know you all hated Perl. Question.
The video tutorials are also at your.
Yeah, they're all the videos where it has like the SMS and whatnot and all the functionality. It's all at bulbsecurity.com. There's just a tab that's smartphone Pentest framework, and there's a link to all those videos. They're just embedded. So, thank you all. Questions?
If you do the Backtrack installer for it, will it recreate the Pentest folder?
No, because it just creates it wherever it is.
It was really a jab of Mark.
Okay, yeah. No, it doesn't. Any other questions? Well, seeing none, thank you all very much for coming.